Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the world of steel.
Sounds interesting.
It is. We were sent Sale's annual report for 2023-24.
Sale.
Yeah, Steel Authority of India Limited, SAIL for short.
Okay, got it.
It's amazing what you can learn about a company from just reading one of these reports.
I know, right? Like you can really see their goals and challenges laid out.
Exactly. And SAIL's report in particular is really fascinating.
Why is that?
Well, for one thing, it gives us a glimpse into how they're trying to balance this huge steel production with environmental responsibility.
Now that's interesting, kind of like walking a tightrope, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, they're operating in this global market that's only getting more and more competitive, especially with the rise of green steel.
Green steel, is that like a new type of steel?
Well, sort of. It's more about the production process.
Okay, makes sense.
So before we jump into the report, maybe we should set the scene a bit.
Sounds good.
Where does SAIL fit in with the global steel landscape?
Well, SAIL is India's largest steel producer.
Wow, largest in all of India.
Yeah. And they play a huge role in building pretty much everything in India.
I see, so they're pretty important to the country's development.
Yeah, they're kind of a cornerstone of the economy.
Okay, but the report did say that while world steel production grew a little last year, China still dominates the market.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're like the big player on the world stage.
So SAIL has some serious competition on its hands.
They definitely do. It's not an easy market to be in.
And speaking of competition, the report also mentioned this whole green steel movement.
Yeah, that seems to be getting a lot of buzz lately.
So what exactly does it mean?
Well, it's all about making steel production more environmentally friendly.
Oh, so reducing their carbon footprint and things like that.
Exactly. There's a lot of pressure from both domestic and international players to make the industry cleaner.
So is SAIL trying to be more eco-friendly?
It seems like they're taking it pretty seriously.
How so?
Their report highlights this commitment they have to operating in harmony with the ecological balance and exceeding environmental standards.
That sounds promising.
Yeah, and they're actually doing things like planting tons of trees.
Really? How many trees are we talking about?
250,000 just this past year, and get this, over 22 million saplings in total.
Wow, 22 million trees. That's a forest. But isn't steel making a pretty resource-intensive process?
You're right, it definitely is. And their water usage is pretty significant.
Oh yeah, the report mentioned that. Some pretty big numbers.
Yeah, over 57 million kiloliters of surface water.
57 million kiloliters. Wow, so they definitely have a big impact.
They do, but the report does talk about their initiatives to improve water efficiency, like water harvesting systems and wastewater treatment.
Okay, so at least they're trying to manage their water usage responsibly?
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction.
Makes sense. Water is a precious resource, especially in a lot of areas.
For sure. It's something they can't ignore.
All right, so they're planting trees and trying to manage their water usage.
Yeah, and they're also focused on their energy consumption.
Right. Steelmaking requires a lot of power, doesn't it?
It does. It's a very energy-intensive process.
So how are they tackling that?
Well, they're maximizing their use of captive power.
Captive power.
It's the power they generate themselves.
Oh, I see.
They actually reached 65% captive power usage in 2023-24, which is pretty impressive.
Wow, so they're not relying on the grid as much as they used to.
Exactly, and that gives them more control over their energy sources.
Okay, makes sense.
And they're also getting cheaper power through open access agreements.
Cheaper and cleaner, right?
Yeah, they're procuring some of their power from renewable sources.
That's great. Speaking of renewables, this is where I got really excited.
What's that?
SAIL's floating solar power plant.
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty cool example of their commitment to innovation.
Tell me more about it.
Well, it's a 4 megawatt P facility, and it started operating in January 2024 at their Ispat steel plant.
Okay, and it's already generating green power.
Yeah, it's up and running.
That's fantastic. And it's not just the floating plant. They also have rooftop solar installations and even bigger projects in the works.
Yeah, they're really going all in on renewable energy.
That's amazing. And it's not just talk, they're actually putting these initiatives into action.
They're definitely walking the walk.
But there's something else that caught my eye in the report.
What's that?
It said that SAIL uses power generated from sugarcane waste, called bagasse, for their Salem steel plant.
Oh, right. That's a really clever way to use a renewable resource.
It's like they're thinking outside the box when it comes to energy sources.
Yeah, and it's a win-win situation. They get clean energy and they reduce waste from the sugar industry.
Absolutely. It seems like SAIL is really trying to minimize their environmental impact in a lot of different ways.
They seem to be taking it seriously.
But they're still a big corporation, right? What about their ethical practices?
That's a great point. It's not just about the environment. And SAIL does emphasize their commitment to good corporate governance.
Oh, okay, so they're not just focused on profits.
Not at all. They talk about transparency, ethical conduct, and having solid risk management.
Well, we already talked about the anti-bribery system. That's a good sign, right?
Yeah, it shows they're taking steps to prevent corruption.
But hold on, the report mentioned that SAIL is the first Maharatna public sector unit to do this.
Right, Maharatna.
What does that even mean?
It's a special status given to the top public sector companies in India.
So, like the best of the best?
Yeah, think of it as being in the Ivy League of Indian industries.
Wow, okay, I get it.
So for SAIL to be the first one with this anti-bribery system is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it shows they're serious about setting a good example.
For sure. And their commitment to ethical conduct goes beyond just this one initiative.
Okay, how so?
Well, they're really focused on corporate social responsibility, too.
Right, the report mentioned their work in community development, right?
Yeah, they're doing a lot in areas like education, healthcare, women's empowerment, and helping communities become more self-sufficient.
So they're not just extracting resources, they're giving back to the communities where they operate.
Exactly. And it's not just about charity, it's also a smart business strategy.
Oh, how so?
By investing in these communities, they're building trust and creating a more stable environment for themselves.
Makes sense. Happy communities, happy company.
Right. And on top of all that, they're also involved in these big national projects, iconic structures, infrastructure development.
Wow, so they're really woven into the fabric of India.
Yeah, it's like they're contributing to national pride.
That's really cool. So it seems like SAIL is checking all the boxes when it comes to sustainability and ethical practices.
They seem to be on the right track.
But they're also in this really tough, competitive market.
Right. So how do they make sure they stay ahead?
Exactly. What are they doing to keep growing?
Well, the report outlines their plans for modernization and expansion.
So they're not just sitting back and relaxing.
Definitely not. They're always looking for ways to improve.
What kind of things are they doing?
Well, for example, they're doing feasibility studies for upgrading steel-making facilities at their alloy steels plant.
Oh, so they're keeping their tech up to date.
Yeah, and they're also trying to boost production and cut costs at the Salem steel plant.
Okay, so they're focused on efficiency.
For sure. But they are facing some challenges.
What kind of challenges?
Well, they're having some delays in developing a large iron ore mine at Rogat.
Oh, why is that?
Seems like they're having issues with land handover. Those bureaucratic hurdles can be a real pain.
Ugh, I bet those things can really slow things down.
Yeah, they can, but SAIL is still pushing forward with other initiatives.
Like what?
Well, for example, they signed a really interesting agreement with the Indian Coast Guard.
Oh yeah, the report mentioned that, something about shipbuilding grade steel, right?
Exactly. It's a big deal because it aligns with the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative.
Wait, what was Atmanirbhar Bharat again?
It's this big push in India to boost domestic production and rely less on imports, becoming more self-reliant.
Oh, right, I remember now.
So this agreement is a win-win for SAIL and the Coast Guard.
They both get what they need, and it helps India become more self-sufficient.
Exactly. It's a great example of how SAIL is contributing to national goals while also growing their business.
It's a pretty strategic move.
For sure. And it shows they're thinking long-term.
Okay, so we've talked about SAIL's place in the global market, their efforts to be sustainable, their ethical practices, and their plans for growth.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But what about the people behind all this?
The employees.
Yeah, a company is only as good as its people, right?
Absolutely. And SAIL seems to understand that.
How so?
The report highlights their focus on employee development and creating a positive work environment.
Oh yeah, they mentioned revamping their SAIL news publication and taking their SAIL Gaurav Diwas celebration online.
Exactly. And they have such a large workforce spread out across different locations, so keeping everyone connected is important.
It's like they're trying to build a strong internal community.
Yeah, create a sense of belonging.
I like that. So it's clear that SAIL is operating in a really dynamic and competitive environment.
Yeah, they've got a lot on their plate.
And they're trying to juggle all these different things, from production to sustainability to employee well-being.
They seem to be doing a good job of balancing it all.
We've only scratched the surface of this report.
There's still so much more to explore.
Exactly. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of SAIL's financial performance.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Me too. Let's dive in.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've gotten a good sense of SAIL's overall goals, but now I'm curious about the specifics.
Yeah, let's dig into the details.
Let's talk numbers. How did SAIL actually perform financially last year?
Well, their sales turnover went up a bit to over 104,545 crore.
104,545 crore?
That's a big number. It is. But the increase was only about 0.79% from the year before.
Okay, so not a huge jump, but still growth, right?
Exactly, especially considering the global economic situation, things haven't been easy.
True, true. So is there anything interesting hidden in those numbers?
Actually, yeah. While most of their revenue came from saleable steel, sales of their other products actually went down.
Interesting. So maybe they should think about branching out a bit more.
Yeah, diversifying their product portfolio could be a good move.
Makes sense. They need to keep up with the market, right?
Exactly. And the report does mention they're trying to sell more of those value-added products.
Oh yeah, the specialized stuff.
Right. That could be a good strategy for future growth.
Makes sense. If you want to stay ahead of the competition, gotta have some special to offer.
Exactly. Can't just rely on the same old thing.
So let's talk about costs for a second.
Okay, sure.
Earlier, we were talking about sales' commitment to energy efficiency.
Right.
Did the report say anything about whether that's actually saving them money?
It did. They saved about 40.13 crore last year just by buying cheaper power.
40.13 crore. Just from switching to cheaper energy.
Yeah. That includes using those renewable sources we talked about.
Wow, so their focus on energy management is really paying off.
It is. And it's good for the environment, too.
It's a win-win. But I got to bring up the water usage again.
Oh, yeah, those big numbers.
Over 57 million kiloliters. That's a lot of water.
It is, but the report does talk about how they're trying to manage that.
What are they doing?
Well, they're trying to make their processes more efficient, use less water.
Okay, that's good.
And they're also setting up systems to collect rainwater, like water harvesting.
Oh, right. I've heard about that.
Yeah. And they're treating and recycling wastewater, too.
So they're really trying to make the most of the water they use.
They are. And they're getting recognized for it, too.
Really?
Yeah. The report says they've won some awards for their environmental performance.
Wow, that's great.
It's always good to see those efforts getting recognized.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But they still face challenges, right?
Of course. No company is perfect.
The report mentions some delays with the Rogut iron ore mine.
Right, those land handover issues.
Yeah. Those bureaucratic setbacks can be a real headache.
They can. And it shows how important it is for SAIL to manage their projects well.
Yeah, especially with operations this big.
Exactly. It's a reminder that things don't always go smoothly, even with the best plans.
True. Those hurdles are bound to pop up, but SAIL is moving forward with other things.
Yeah, definitely.
Like what?
Well, there's the agreement with the Indian Coast Guard. That's a big one.
Yeah, that partnership seems really promising.
And they're also involved in those big, iconic projects in India.
Right. They're really contributing to the nation's development.
They are. And they're doing it all while maintaining those high standards of corporate governance.
Right. Remember, they're the first Maharatna company to implement that anti-bribery system across the board.
It's a big accomplishment.
It shows they're committed to doing things the right way.
Yeah. And it's not just about the rules and regulations. They really seem to care about their stakeholders, too.
Oh, right. The report talked about that.
Yeah. Their employees, the communities they operate in, all those different groups.
It seems like they understand that building strong relationships is important for success.
It definitely is.
So what are some of the things they're doing to engage with their stakeholders?
Well, they're really focused on their employees, making sure they feel valued and supported.
Yeah, like with those internal communications initiatives.
Exactly. And they offer training programs, try to create a positive work environment, all those good things.
Right. It's all about creating a good company culture.
And they're also very active in community development.
Oh yeah, all those projects focused on education, healthcare, and economic opportunities.
Exactly. And the report gives specific examples, schools they've supported, hospitals they've helped.
That's great. It's good to see those concrete examples.
It really brings it to life. It's not just vague promises, it's real impact.
And they're also working to make their supply chain more ethical and sustainable.
Oh, yeah. The report mentioned their supplier code of conduct and their focus on responsible sourcing.
It's like they're taking this holistic approach to sustainability.
They are. It's not just about their own operations. It's about influencing the whole system.
Like a ripple effect, starting from within and spreading outward.
Exactly. And the report acknowledges that this is an ongoing journey.
So they're not claiming to be perfect.
No, they're honest about the fact that there's always room for improvement.
That's good. It shows they're willing to learn and adapt.
Yeah. And they're continuing to push the boundaries, looking for new and innovative ways to be more sustainable.
It's encouraging to see.
So we've talked about their financial performance, their stakeholder engagement, their commitment to sustainability.
It's clear that SAIL is a complex organization.
It is. But they seem to be doing a lot of things right.
And they're not afraid to face the challenges head on.
Exactly. But how can they take all this and become a real leader in sustainable steel production?
That's a great question. The report does hint at some possibilities.
Like what?
They're already investing in renewables, trying to use resources more efficiently, and sourcing materials responsibly.
Right. What if they went even further? Like, what if they set the standard for the whole industry?
Yeah. Imagine if they pushed for stricter regulations and got other companies to follow suit.
They could partner with research institutions, share their best practices, really drive change.
And they have a lot of influence in India.
True. They could advocate for policies that promote sustainability across the board.
It's exciting to think about the impact they could have.
It is. They have the potential to be a real force for good.
Okay, so in part 2, we've delved into Sale's financial performance, seen how they engage with their stakeholders, and even brainstormed some ideas for how they can become a leader in sustainable steel.
It's been a really insightful discussion.
But there's still one crucial aspect we haven't touched on yet.
What's that?
The framework that underpins everything Sale does, their corporate governance structure.
Ah, yes. The foundation for everything else.
Exactly. In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to zoom in on that.
Hey, sounds good. Let's get to it.
So we've talked about Sale's sustainability journey, all the things they're doing to be more environmentally responsible.
Right, and their impressive growth, those big numbers they're pulling in.
And how they're engaging with their employees and those local communities. It's really quite a story.
It is, but there's this one crucial element we haven't really touched on yet.
Yeah, the framework that makes it all possible, right?
Exactly, the thing that holds everything together.
In this final part of our deep dive, let's focus on that. Sale's corporate governance structure.
It's like the foundation of the house, You need a strong base to build everything else on.
Okay, I like that. So how does Sale ensure they're running a tight ship, so to speak?
Well, the report really emphasizes their dedication to high standards of corporate governance.
We've already seen how serious they are about ethical conduct, like with that anti-bribery system.
Right. And it's not just about avoiding corruption, it's about transparency, too.
Oh, okay. How so?
They go into detail about their financial reporting processes, their risk assessments, all those internal controls.
So they're not just saying they're doing things right, they're actually showing us how they're doing it.
Exactly. That level of transparency is pretty important, especially for a company as big as Sale.
I agree. And they also seem to be pretty good at thinking ahead, anticipating potential problems.
Oh, yeah. They talk about managing risks, like securing their raw materials and dealing with those fluctuating energy prices.
Makes sense. The steel industry is known for being unpredictable, right?
It is. All those global factors can really impact their bottom line.
Yeah. And then there's also the risks related to their own operations.
Right, like managing all those plants and mines, that's a big job.
One thing that stood out to me was their approach to aging infrastructure.
Oh yeah, with all those facilities, that's got to be a top priority.
So what are they doing about it?
They've got this whole asset management plan in place, regular inspections, maintenance, upgrades when they're needed.
So they're not just letting things fall apart, they're being proactive.
Exactly. And it's not just about the physical stuff either.
Right.
Cybersecurity. They talk about protecting their data and systems, which is super important these days.
Yeah, especially for a company that relies so heavily on technology.
So they're really thinking about risk management from all angles, physical and digital.
It seems like they've got all their bases covered.
Yeah.
But what about the future? What does Sale's outlook look like?
The report has this kind of cautiously optimistic tone. They acknowledge the challenges, but they're not giving up.
They're realists, but they're still hopeful, right?
Exactly. They talk about the global economic uncertainty, the competition, but they also highlight the opportunities.
Like what?
The growing demand for steel in India, the new products they're developing, their modernization efforts.
And they seem to be in a good position to benefit from that shift towards green steel we were talking about.
Right. All those investments in renewables and responsible sourcing, that's going to give them an edge.
For sure. And they're also looking even further ahead.
Yeah. Research into new materials, collaborations to develop new technologies. They're not afraid to innovate.
It seems like they're approaching the future with a good balance of being practical and being ambitious.
Exactly. They're keeping their feet on the ground while also reaching for the stars,
I like that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Sale, what are the key takeaways you think our listeners should remember?
Well, first of all, Sale is more than just a steel company. They're really intertwined with India's story. their growth, their development, their aspirations.
It's like they're a symbol of India's progress in a way.
Right. And their commitment to sustainability, that's a big part of their identity, too.
They're trying to do business in a way that benefits everyone, their employees, the communities, the environment.
And their corporate governance structure, that's the foundation that makes all of this possible.
It ensures they're operating with transparency, accountability, and integrity, which is essential for building trust.
Exactly. It's been a fascinating journey exploring sales world through this annual report.
I agree. We've learned so much about their operations, their challenges, and their vision for the future.
And for our listeners, this is just the beginning. There's so much more to discover about SAIL and the steel industry.
Absolutely. We encourage you to keep digging, keep learning, and stay curious about the companies and the industries that are shaping our world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little inspiring.
And until next time, keep exploring and keep asking those questions.
Yeah.